This is Colossians chapter 2, 2 verse 21, but mostly all of Colossians. I can't go through all of Colossians um here, but I will look at Colossians 2:21. Do not touch, do not taste. Oh, do not touch, do not taste, do not handle. Okay, so the chapter of Colossians 2 is talking about people who are at certain points, it's talking about people who try to put traditions of men on other people. Let's read from verse 16. So let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substances of Christ. Let's skip to verse 20. Therefore, if you die with Christ from the basic principles of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which all concern things which perish with the using according to the commandments and doctrines of men. These things indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed religion, false humility, and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. In other words, Paul is writing to people who are being put under regulations as if that's what really makes a Christian. Okay, do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, don't go to church on this day. Oh, go to church only on this day. Oh, you don't observe the Sabbath. Oh, you should observe the Sabbath. Oh, why do you celebrate Christmas? Oh, why do you celebrate Halloween? Why? You hear this in the church all the time today. Now, personally, it doesn't mean that I celebrate Halloween, even though I was born on October 31st. But like he's saying these are not things that are have anything to do with Christ. Okay, you're concerning yourselves as if you're in the world with these regulations and rules and commandments, and on the surface, it said they have an appearance of wisdom, but the substance, they have no value when it comes to the indulgence of the flesh. In other words, they do nothing to help you in your Christian walk. Whether you go to church on Saturday or on Sunday does nothing for your Christian walk. Whether you go to church does nothing for your Christian walk unless you are focusing on the substance which is of Christ. So someone can go to church and miss Christ, and someone can stay at home and still indulge in Christ, in the substance, the true reason why we fellowship with other believers. Someone can have that, and someone else can go to church out of religion. So that's the main distinction that Paul is making in Colossians chapter 2. Alyssa says, can you also explain the Sabbath following? Okay, real quick, and then we're going to end with this. So the Sabbath is one. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy is one of 613 commandments given to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai when they came out of Egypt. And the Lord gave them these commandments not as a suggestion, not as, oh, it's a good thing to get some rest every few days. That's certainly a practical application of the law, just like not killing your neighbor is a practical application of the law because you won't die, you won't go to jail or lose your life for that. Just like not stealing is a practical application of the law. But these laws were not given for just practical application. Because when you hear a lot of the Sabbath teachings today, it's just, oh, God gave this command knowing that our bodies needed rest and yada, yada, yada. And that's true. But the context of these laws being given was not advice. It was a requirement for righteousness. Okay, you need to have that baseline. Otherwise, you can be deceived with so many different things. People can tell you, hey, women should not wear, or imagine if someone came and told you, hey, you should not wear cotton and polyester, when there's a high chance that the shirt I'm wearing right now, just the shirt, is both cotton and polyester, like 20% one and 80% the other. There's a high chance that, because that's how clothes are made these days. But in those days, you couldn't even wear a shirt that was made of cotton and pants that were made of polyester. Okay, so imagine if someone put that law on you today and said, hey, this is just good advice. You'd be like, well, I don't need to do that, right? So the Sabbath, though, it's good and you should rest. You should take care of your body. I need to take that advice. You should take care of your body, but it's not advice. It's a commandment. It's for righteousness. So the reason it's not a requirement in the New Testament is because we don't do any of the 613 commandments for righteousness. Okay, we don't do any of them. Okay, Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. Also, it's 10 commandments. Should we still follow Sabbath today? Yes, it's part of the 10 commandments, but the 10 commandments are part of 613 commandments. So should we follow those 613 commandments today? Not for righteousness. No. Don't kill your neighbor. Don't murder. Don't steal. because that is not who you are as a believer, because that is not befitting of a believer. But don't think that that's what makes you saved. Okay, so yes, Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath, and that actually proves that the the Sabbath is not meant for us to obey in the way the Israelites obeyed it today. Because Jesus says the Sabbath was created for man, not man for the Sabbath. And then he says, I am your Sabbath. In other words, I am the person who gives you rest. You come to me for rest, not a day. Okay. I wish we had more time. But the Israelites would have understood this, because Jesus said, come to me, all who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. To the Israelites, rest was the Sabbath. Okay. And Jesus is talking to Israelites here. So rest, the moment they hear rest, what are you talking about? And then later on, you say you are the Lord of the Sabbath. So we should come to you for that rest. Jesus is the fulfillment of the Sabbath. The Sabbath was a shadow. One day a week, you get to rest. When man was created, the next day was the Sabbath. So he was born into rest. That's a picture of us being born again into Christ and resting in salvation. I'll end with this. Should you rest? Should you give your body a chance to recover? Yes, 100%. You should do that. I'm about to go rest right now. But it's not for salvation. Okay. And if people are judging you, you should ask them, well, do you do anything on the Sabbath? Okay. Even those who go to church on Saturday claiming they're observing the Sabbath are not observing the Sabbath. That's how absurd it is. Because on the Sabbath, you don't do anything. You don't iron your clothes to go to church. You don't get in the car and drive to church. You don't walk to church. You don't do anything on the Sabbath. Okay. Later on, the Pharisees started going to the synagogues and stuff. But we're talking about the original law that God gave. You don't even do anything on the Sabbath. Okay. So let's end there. I'm glad I helped out, Alyssa.